Welcome back to another music review, everyone. My name is Bryce, and um, for this review, at the time of this recording, I don't know when this is going to actually make it to the website or YouTube, but at the time of this recording right now, it's February 3rd, 2017, and the significance of that is that a new album has just been released today for very popular Christian music artist Kari Jobe. And so I thought for this music review, to kind of celebrate this release of a new album, I thought we'd take a look at her first album. And that was it, just self-titled. It has her, has her name on it. It kind of talked about this back in the Unspoken review, how a lot of groups will for their debut album will just have their group name. Well, some single artists do that too, and Kari did that for her first one, so it's just called Kari Jobe. This was done back in 2009. It's put out. It was put out. Integrity Music had a really big push in it, but Ed Cash and Louis Giglio, that's Sparrow Music Records. So, Sparrow is, I don't know. I'm kind of looking around. Ed Cash is now with Sparrow, but I'm not seeing Sparrow's, marks anywhere on here. It's entirely possible now that Sparrow, because Kari signed with Sparrow, that they may potentially own the rights to this album now because Integrity Music no longer exists. It's a shame, but that being the case, like I said, it may be possible that they own it now. I know Ed Cash, who is the producer for it, also now works for Sparrow, so I'm just going to assume that they own the rights to this now. But checking back over it again, it looks like Integrity Music was the main people to come up with this. And of course, she mentions a nod to Gateway Church, because Gateway Church is where she's part of the Gateway worship team for that church. It's a church in Texas. I want to say Houston, but I can't remember for sure. I know Robert Morris is the pastor there. It's a really good church. But yeah, so that's some of the recognition stuff that she has on here. As for the tracks themselves, there's a grand total of 12 of them, and let's go ahead and get started with that. And if I have time, I'll talk a little bit about Kari herself. Track 1 is I'm Singing. This starts off quiet, and then it kind of goes to a moderate contemporary kind of a feel to it. It's a song of praise, as are a lot of these on this album. The chorus kind of focuses on his Redeemer and Savior titles. That's kind of the main push for this one. I like the chorus phrasing on this one. I think overall the song is pretty well written, and I just thought I'd give it that kind of a recognition. But a lot of these songs kind of similar to some of Chris Tomlin's and Aaron Schuss, where I can't really elaborate on them too much without sounding really redundant by the time I get done talking about it. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. We're gonna move on to track 2, which is Healer. This one's a little bit slower, but the music is not that much different from I'm Singing. I'd say one of the obvious differences off the bat is that the piano and the drums start the song off instead of the guitar. In this one, Kari proclaims God to be her healer and enough to sustain her. That's really the gist of the message. And again, it's pretty good. Track 3, Everyone Needs a Little. This is probably one of the better musically written, I guess, of the album, because it's just a little bit different, and I love the way that this song is wrote, both musically and lyrically. I think everything just fits together like really nice. It kind of what similar to the first two, it kind of continues on this pattern of starting soft and then building as the song is going on, but it has such a uniqueness to it that kind of separates it from the first two songs that I really appreciate, actually. And this one basically carries breaking down things that we need, and how basically we can find them all at in God, and specifically mentions the invite to come to God's table. But various things, peace, rest, love, hope, all that sort of things. It's like everyone needs it. Everyone needs a little of it. Everyone needs a lot of it, really. But everyone needs it, and you can all find it in God. That's basically the message of the song. So track 4 is Joyfully, and this one it's guitar and Kari are pretty much the predominant ones, especially early on. But it does incorporate the other instruments, though. This one again is another praise song, but this one doesn't really have a specific focus, so it doesn't really give me a lot to elaborate on. I will say, though, that the lyrics for this one seem to sound pretty intimate, but the music isn't slow. Usually when you hear the more intimate kind of lyrics, the music goes along with it, and is maybe will be either not have much accompaniment, or it'll be really soft or something like that. But this one's different, though. The music is still pretty steady, but the lyrics are more intense. So I thought that was a pretty interesting combination. Track 5 is Beautiful. This one is pretty quiet, pretty peaceful. Kari describes being in the presence of God, and how beautiful he is, and part of that beauty comes from just the very nature of being in his presence, or just the very nature of his presence itself, contributing to that beautifulness. But it's really a song about being in the presence of God, and how much she appreciates it, or whatever. I don't know. It may not be a good word, but track 6 is My Beloved. So this one is pretty much piano and Kari. It's very intimate, and this one's from the perspective of Jesus to his people, talking about his beloved, his bride, and things like that. In a way, it almost sounds to me like a response to the previous song. I don't know if that's what they were going for or not, but in a way, it kind of sounds like it is. And if that is the case, then that's an A+ for me. Track 7, Singing Over Me. So this one picks up a good bit. This one kind of describes God's comforting, his comforting nature, his comforting side to us by way of singing over us. I don't know if you've ever heard of this or not, but there is a I don't know. I can't remember if it's mentioned in a verse. I think it is, because I don't think anybody else could have come up with this on their own. But it's this concept of God singing over us. It's, we sing praises and things to him, but it's the idea of him kind of singing over us, and it's a way of him portraying his comforting, nurturing side to him, that the one that the side of him that's inviting people to come and just rest in his arms for a while, or whatever, and that's kind of what this song is talking about, and I do enjoy it a lot. Track 8, No Sweeter Name. So this one almost has like a acoustic. It's an acoustic start, really, or almost has like almost sounds like a little bit of Irish Scottish music kind of mixed into the beginning of it, but it's pretty much acoustic throughout the whole way. It's another song of praise that lists some of the things that Jesus is, and again, I really can't elaborate too much more on that. There's really not a whole lot to say, but it's still a good song. I think it's recently been released in a live version of like Gateway Worship. I think it's on that. But anyway, track 9 is Be Still. So this one's got actually instead of piano being really involved, this one's got guitar and violin really being the predominant instruments in this one. And again, there's not a lot to say about this one. It just says, it's just an encouragement for us to wait on God. It's based on the verse, be still and know that he is God. But yeah, again, there's not a whole lot to say about it. Track 10, Sweep Me Away. This one, to me, really feels like a ballad. And I probably could have used this description for other intimate songs that I've reviewed already, but to me, this one is probably the first one that I can say a little bit more definitely that this to me feels like a ballad, because really to me this feels like a love song to God, sort of, in a sense. I really don't have much else to say about it, because honestly, I don't know if I could really describe this one really well. My advice would be to just check it out and listen for yourselves. But yeah, interesting though that I think this is probably one of the first ones that I can say is more of a definitive ballad. Track 11 is Revelation Song, and this one has a very I guess quiet beginning. It's a little bit different from the live version that I've heard. Obviously, it borrows from the Book of Revelation because, well, I'll get to it in a second. The song itself has very good phrasing. It's this version of it, the studio version of it, is very acoustic, and it stays that way till about like just after the third verse, and then it almost starts to sound more lively, or whatever, however word you want to use it. And really, I like the live version better, but I'm not dissing this version at all because it's still a really good song. So how does it borrow from Revelation? Well, the passage in Revelation describes people around the throne of God singing, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and who is to come." Well, that's basically what the chorus is, and so there's some other elements too that kind of borrow from it and some other passages of the Bible. But I mean, that's basically the gist of what the song is, and I think it's awesome. And then the final song on this album is "You're For Me." It's pretty much piano as the predominant one in this. There's some minor synth stuff that's added to it, and some interesting kind of drum noises. I call it drum noises because it's not full on playing on a drum set. It almost sounds like somebody's taking like a marimba mallet and trying to play congas, and then whoever mixed it has the volume turned down on it. So it's interesting. As for the song itself, it talks about God's faithfulness, and really, in my opinion, is probably one of the better songs that on this album anyway, that helps kind of display Kari's natural singing ability. I mean, really, because she has a very interesting voice, because she sings exactly how she talks, and she still has a very kind of, I hate to use the word schoolgirl, but it's very high pitched, pipsqueaky kind of a voice, and that's also how she sings too. She has literally one of the most unique voices, and at times when you really kind of stop and think about it, you wonder, what is it about her voice that leads people to regard her in such high esteem in comparison to people who have existed before, like Sandy Patty or Twyla Paris, or maybe more recently some people like Francesca Battistelli or Natalie Grant. Well, what really when Kari Jobe finally when she starts to sing a little bit more naturally, and she really kind of lets it go and just sings instead of trying to keep everything boxed in. That's when her vocal talent really starts to come out, and you start to hear just how good of a voice she really has. And this song, "You Are For Me," is probably the best example on this particular album that helps demonstrate that. So listen to it for that. I went in, I listened to the live version that I don't think it's officially on the Majestic album itself, but I know it's on the DVD. I just happen to have an MP3 of it anyway, but I went ahead, I listened to the live version of it, and I think I actually favor the studio one a little bit more, but check out the live version too, because at that particular live version, she also sings some of the song in Spanish. I should mention too, she's one of the only artists that I know of that has done this. Maybe others have, but this debut album of hers, she actually has another version of it that is completely done in Spanish, and I think that's pretty awesome, because not only can I not speak Spanish, but I mean, it's like I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because she's from Texas, but I just think it's a cool nod, to make this album in English and Spanish, so the other, so you don't necessarily have to know English in order to enjoy it. If you speak Spanish, then I don't know. I don't want to trip over my words, but I think it's a cool nod. Let's just leave it at that. So anyway, as for this one, really overall, this is a pretty solid praise and worship album. There are some songs that I think Kari sings really well, and then there's also other ones where I think seems a little timid. At least it's what it sounds like to me. And on those songs, it hurts. Overall, I think the music stays in a box, and where it occasionally branches out. And what I mean by that is it really sounds like the majority of these songs are written off of a similar base. Like maybe they had, I'm not musically defined enough to tell if it's because they have the same key or the same chord progression or things like that, but the songs sound too similar. And I don't necessarily have a problem. Like, I'll give you an example. There's this group called Dream Theater, and one of their albums, it's called Metropolis Part 2, and basically the whole of that album is it's part 2 to a single song that they had written from before, but the whole album is written so where it sounds like one song because it's part 2 of a previous song. Well, and so because it's written to be all one song, I don't have a problem with it, and it actually sounds incredibly amazing for being for music wise. But as far as this goes, this is not they're not trying to make one long song out of it. At least that's not the impression I'm getting. The impression I'm getting is that these are all supposed to be individual songs, and yet they all sound like the same song because they stay pretty well boxed up and still stay pretty safe. And I don't guess I don't have. I mean, I'm a little back and forth on safe albums in general, but I mean, I guess first albums, be a little bit safe. Try to define to people what your sound is. I'm a little bit more lenient when it comes to that, and this being the first album, that it kind of falls under that same guideline. But even still, I felt that the music was still pretty boxed, even though it was generally good. It just was the same, So as far as the lyrics go, I liked pretty much all the lyrics. I don't think there's a lyric that I don't like. There's all got good messages. Overall, it's got good structure, song flow. I mean, the only minor complaint I would have about the song flow is that I would not put "Singing Over Me" after "My Beloved," because a song that goes that fast after a really slow, intimate song doesn't really help make a good transition. But that's just my opinion. I didn't hear any real major issues in the mixing with this one. So overall, you guys, I'm going to give this one a 4.0 out of 5. And really, I don't think I could go any higher than that. I think it's pretty fair. The problems in this one make it inferior to her later albums, but that having been said, it's still a solid debut. So, you don't want too many mistakes. You really don't want any mistakes at all, but you don't want too many on your first album because you want to make a good first impression. But that having been said, if you're going to make mistakes, I guess it would make more sense to have it on early in your career, because if you start to have the same mistakes or rookie mistakes like later in your career, then that doesn't really say good things about you either. So, for a debut, it is pretty solid for what it is, and I do like it. My favorite tracks on this album would have to be "Everyone Needs a Little" and "Revelation Song," and the other ones that I could recommend for you are "I'm Singing," "Singing Over Me," and "You Are For Me." But yeah, definitely the two that I go back to the most on this one are "Everyone Needs a Little" and "Revelation Song." So definitely check those out. See if you can find some of the live versions of it. See, maybe you might like those better. But guys, that's really all I have for this one. I look forward to listening to Kari's new one, because the last one, I know she's made a studio version of Majestic since making the live one, but since I already had the live one, I never bothered to get the studio one. So it's been a while since I've heard anything new from Kari Jobe, and so I've really been looking forward to this album coming out. So I can't wait to hear it, and eventually I'll get to reviewing it. But as far as this one goes, like I said, that's all I've got for it. So please check out previous stuff. If you have any comments or questions, please email me at kudaexpressions@gmail.com. And until next time, may the Lord bless you. And as always, everyone, please take care.